Hey guys,
Hey guys.
welcome to day
6.
of our
Studying parents of the Bible.
The Good
The bad.
and
The ugly.
we've tried to
Goobers.
shoot this the last 3 times.
And it's very late
Yeah.
at night now.
Let me tell you, so far we haven't been able to get this video under 30 minutes, but today, right now, in this very moment, you're going to get the honor of being able to see it get under 30.
Believe in us.
So, yesterday we talked about Saul and his son Jonathan, and Saul's whole motive of trying to make himself look good in front of people. Well, we've got a different king today. We're going to be talking about David. David's whole thing was he really wanted to make God happy, but he started dealing with some guilt. David had made sin after sin, broken mistakes after broken mistakes, and they started to catch up with him. We see these mistakes really hit home right after David takes Bathsheba, the woman he saw bathing on a roof, and he takes her, has his way with her, sends her back home, and then she writes him one day and says, "Hey, I'm pregnant." And he goes, "Oh." Then he kills her husband, who's actually one of his mighty men, a friend of his, and then brings her into his house. Well, Nathan the prophet
To look like
like,
he's the good guy taking care of one of his men's wives.
and that's something that I'm sure drove him up the wall watching Saul do similar situations, getting people to look at him like he was the good guy. Well, David gets confronted by Nathan the prophet, and he says, I love how you say it.
Essentially he's saying, like, you have so much, but you took from someone their only.
Yeah.
You know?
Like that. And so David is in a place of, man, I'm a dog. Like, I can't believe I screwed up. I can't believe I did that. He repents to God, and actually the son that they had, they lose that baby.
Yeah.
Because, and God told him that it was going to happen. Because of your sin, you're losing this baby.
Right.
And so that is like a huge pain. His heart
I
has
think
to be
that
broken.
was a pivotal shift in David's life. And unfortunately, the chapters that follow, we're going to be in 1 Chronicles, 2 Samuel, and 1 Kings. We're not going to go into every story because it's a lot. But if you need references, that's where to look. And so in 2 Samuel is where we see David and Bathsheba, and then that whole thing play out. Well, then directly after that, in chapters 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, we see David's life kind of continue to just fall apart with his kids.
Yeah. Amnon, who was his oldest, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, David had like 19 plus sons of his like free wives, and then way more with his concubine wives. That's not even including his daughters. And so of these first 4, we don't really know much about the second one at all. Some people think that he may have died really young as well. But we hear these 3, Amnon, Absalom, and Adonijah, and they're just train wrecks, guys.
By the way, if you're going to name a baby, I would skip those names.
Yeah, no, don't pick those because they didn't turn out well. And so Amnon takes
Tamar, his half-sister,
and sexually assaults her.
Yeah, big bad deal, and shouldn't have done it. David is heartbroken by this.
He says he's furious, but he does nothing.
He does nothing. No correction, nothing.
And so Tamar's full brother, Absalom, hears of this, and he's really ticked off. And so he does something. He first comes to Tamar's rescue and lets her live in his house under his protection for the rest of her life.
Which starts to build up a self-righteous ego,
which should have been David's job.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't say anything to Amnon, maybe because he's hoping David's going to do something, but David doesn't. So over the course of time, Amnon gets even more bitter and sees, my dad, the ruler of the country, the righter of wrongs, is not righting this wrong in our own family.
So he takes it upon himself to do it.
Yeah. So he invites all of the king's sons and the king to his house. And the king says, no, we shouldn't do that. And he says, oh, please, at least send me Amnon. And David, against his better judgment, sends him. And when Amnon is drunk, Absalom's men kill him.
Yeah. So now we have murder. First we have rape. Now we've got murder in the family. David doesn't do anything. Absalom takes off running and goes to his grandpa
in Geshur, because his mama was a princess that David had married. And so neighboring kingdom, he's safe with grandpa. I'm sure grandpa believes his story of how dad didn't do anything to, help my sister.
Right.
Playing like it's a mom, like it's this whole thing.
This is pure speculation.
Yeah, it does not say this, but
fact is he went to grandpa.
And grandpa didn't give him back.
No, and probably loaded him up with sugar too.
Because that's what grandparents do.
Just so you know. So then Joab comes to David and says, David, you know, we can bring Absalom back. We need to do that.
Yeah, he's there for 3 years, though.
And so finally he comes back, comes to Jerusalem. Him and his dad kind of make amends.
But he doesn't even see his dad's face for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then finally comes back, bows down at his dad's feet, and his dad kisses him.
Yeah. Because his dad does love him, but his dad doesn't love him enough to discipline him.
Yeah.
Probably because out of his own guilt, he's like, guess what? I took a woman, and I took advantage of her, and I hurt her. Yeah. And so whenever he sees one of his sons do this act, he's going, am I much different than that?
Yeah.
And then he sees Absalom murder his brother. He goes, I murdered her husband. Am I much different than that?
Right.
And so he's seeing, it's almost like he's
everything's
reaping.
Excusing, like, everything for his kids.
Yeah, it's reaping. I'm just as bad as you are. So what right do I have?
Yeah, I can't.
And that's bad parenting. Your child has to be held responsible because it's mercy. Had he held Amnon responsible, Amnon probably would have been murdered.
And Absalom probably never would have rebelled.
Yeah.
Because what we see is he's back. Well, now he starts doing this thing where he still believes he can do his dad's job better than him. All because of where this started with Tamar and Amnon. And so he starts sitting at the city gates and saying, oh, are you going to go see my dad? He's too busy. I'll listen to you, though. I'm caring and wonderful. And, you know, if only someone would appoint me judge, and then I could do this for you.
Yeah.
And so he gets a following.
And that's a spirit of manipulation.
It
and
is.
You see kids do that. I'm not going to tell you which particular type of kids, but you know who it is. Okay. Who likes to do the manipulating, they get everything. You know what I'm talking about? The golden child. You know what I'm talking about? Anybody know? Just put a hand up in the comments. You're like, I know who you're talking about. But there's those kids who, man, they will kind of do that thing of just work around. I mean, we have our girls do it to us all the time. They're just like, hey, Dad, can I have ice cream? And I'm like, did your mom say?
Or my favorite.
Oh, no, she said no, I forgot.
I just really want to snuggle with you. Oh, now that we're snuggling, can we watch a movie? Now that we're watching a movie, can we have some popcorn and M&Ms?
Yeah.
It's like, they wanted popcorn and M&Ms. Yeah. They just knew the route to get there.
It's 8:30 at night.
I mean, they knew if I started with, Mommy, I just want to snuggle you.
Just a little bit. I just want a little bit. Give me a little bit more. A little bit more. And so, we're making it silly, but in a real situation, here we have Absalom who is saying, I'm going to start slowly getting the hearts of the people. And honestly,
and he does.
You could see this play out. We would call it in churches today the spirit of Jezebel, but it's where somebody comes in and they just take a little bit, and it takes like 2 to 3 years to actually see that spirit come full manifest. And by the time it hits that 3-year mark, then they start pushing because they can. And people start going, well, no, we love them. They're so wonderful. They give the best hugs. They make the wonderful cookies.
He listens to us at the city gates.
Yeah. And so why wouldn't we want them in authority? Well, I'll tell you why, because they've been playing for that. That spirit is the most patient spirit I think I've ever seen. And it's the one who'll sit back and just slowly turn the boat.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long game.
Slowly turn the boat. And I'm going, and I'm telling you, some of those people, they do make the best cookies. That's just a fact, and I hate to be that way.
And so this continues on, though, and Absalom eventually, like, he's riding around in a nice chariot. He's looking good. He's hired runners to go before him. I'm like, here comes Absalom, the one we all love. Now, he's amazing.
Pause. Okay, what is that? It is getting everybody else under the illusion of your authority.
Yeah.
I want everybody else to believe this. And so if I can get them to think about me in that aspect, well, what spirit is that? I think we talked about him yesterday called Saul.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
And so it continues on, and eventually he hires more guys. He talks to his dad and says, while I was gone in Geshur, I just so missed being able to worship the Lord in Hebron. So that's where I want to go.
To Hebron, where you go and anoint kings.
Yeah. And so he goes, and he hires some more men with him, and he says, all right, guys, listen up. I'm going to disperse you around, and when you hear the trumpet blast, you are going to stand up and say, Absalom is king in Hebron. And that's what they do. Well, there's also 200 more guys who went down willingly, just like, hey, we're going to go sacrifice. That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
And so when this happens, they're like, oh, now
we
look
sacrificing.
like we're supporting him in this.
Yeah, it's not a sacrifice. It's an ordination
so
service. So
now it looks like he has this huge following. So word quickly gets back to Jerusalem, and it says, whoa, Absalom has the hearts of everybody. He's coming for us. And so David and his advisors say, if we don't leave, we're going to be in ruin.
Yeah, so they load up everything and go. They leave the concubines back to take care of the palace. And as they go, they weep and they are bitter. And people are saying, let's kill him. And he goes, let's kill Absalom. And David's going, this may be God.
Yeah, maybe
This may be God.
maybe this is the kingdom is being ripped from my hands because I don't deserve it.
Because I don't deserve it. Because I'm
Because
still
I'm
the guy
sinning.
who shed so much blood. I'm still the guy who sinned with Bathsheba. And there she is, dragging her children down the road with them. Even Solomon is probably in that group. I'm
Yeah.
sure he is. And he's weeping as he goes. And Solomon's watching his dad go through the most horrific eviction probably ever known to man.
Yeah, I mean, they're on the run, like refugees.
And so Absalom comes in, doors wide open, come on in, makes himself at home and asks his advisors, how do we tell everybody? How do we put the nail in the coffin that I am king and not my father? And the advisors say, you know what? All of his concubines who he left to take care of the palace, go put a tent on top of the roof and sleep with all of them.
Yeah, and then that will show everybody that you've made yourself like obnoxious to your father, meaning like they will know, oh, there's not going to be any reconciliation here. Now lines have been drawn.
Yeah.
Now there is the army of Israel and the army of David against each other.
You've done this to humiliate your father.
Yeah. Because
And
it's a play for the throne. If you sleep with a king's wives or concubines, that is you literally saying, I am now trying for the throne.
Yeah, well, not trying it. It's I have
I am
the
taking
throne.
the throne.
It's not yours anymore. I've taken what was yours. It's mine now. So once that happens, Joab, the same guy who brought Absalom home, is now the guy who says, I'm going to kill that kid.
Yeah, so now they're at war. We've got David, because when he fled with his mighty men, and then like several different people groups went with him.
Yeah.
I don't remember them all.
All of his loyalists went with him, and then Absalom rose up his army, created his group of loyalists. Very quickly, they followed him, and war started. And war did not go good for Absalom, because Joab was a man of war, and the people who followed David were all mighty warriors, and they were sons of mighty warriors.
Right.
And so they just put a big old whooping on him. Well, Absalom's running from battle, leaving battle, and he gets caught up in a tree. His hair's, because the man wouldn't, he had such beautiful hair. Everybody look at me and my hair. Got elected because of his hair is what happened. And
Maybe
so,
it's Maybelline.
Maybe. So he gets caught up in a tree and his donkey keeps on going. Well, whenever Joab finds out about it, one of his men said, hey, I found him in a tree. He goes, did you kill him? And he goes, no. He goes, okay, I'll go kill him. And they said, the king said, don't kill his son. And Joab goes, we're killing Absalom.
Right, because you think, what's going to happen if you don't kill him?
You have to kill him. We didn't take care of him the first time whenever he killed his brother, and now he played for the throne.
Yeah.
You're done. So Joab kills him.
News gets back to David. David is
Heartbroken.
distraught. So
Yeah.
he is mourning and mourning and mourning, so much so that David's own men now are panicking because they hear that their king is not happy about what has just happened, the orders that they have been given.
Yeah.
And now they're fleeing because they're like, oh, now are we going to be killed
Excuse me.
for being partially responsible for the killing of the king's son?
Yeah. Why? And some of them are just mourning too, along with the king. Here we had victory in a time of celebration, a time where we just said the king's throne is secure. God showed again that David is chosen. Instead, they're mourning. They're dragging themselves back to camp, back to Jerusalem. David gets back to the palace, and Joab finds out what has happened. And
Yes.
Joab is furious.
2 Samuel 19. Yeah, and he just rips him a new one. He's just like, hey, man, you have humiliated your guys. Like, it's so obvious that you wish that Absalom was alive and all of us were dead. You are the worst. If you don't go out there and say something to them right now, then you'll have nobody left with you. You will have more calamities on you than you've had your entire life.
Yeah.
Like, you better go out. And so the king does. He goes out and he tries to make it better.
He does try to make amends.
And so that's the end of Absalom. But then we see Adonijah come up, his fourth son. And so he sees, oh, my brothers are out of the way. So now it's my turn to play for the throne. And so here's what the Bible says. So he makes this play. He gets chariots and horses ready and 50 men to run ahead of him. And then,
Wow. Way to be original, bro.
right. And in 1 Kings verse 6, it says, his father had never rebuked him by asking, why do you behave as you do? And it says he was also very handsome and was born next after Absalom. And so it's saying because his brothers are out of the way, because he's next in line,
Yeah.
and because his dad never told him to knock it off, never held him accountable.
Yeah.
That's literally why he's doing this.
Well, and because he's good looking. There was
Yeah.
that. So watch out. Good looking people, they're trouble.
Who don't get rebuked.
Yeah.
Man. And so that's the most we hear of David's sons. But none of this works out well. You know, like these are all train wrecks.
Yeah. And mostly because, and what we're seeing is a lack of discipline.
Yeah.
I don't know why my kid did that. Well, did you discipline him? Well, I told him that probably wasn't a good
Right.
idea.
And so when you don't discipline them when they're young,
Yeah.
you deal with this stuff when they're adults. And we see that. We see, well, it was cute when he was 4 and would say those cuss words. You know? And it's like, well,
I don't know why he cusses me out when he's 12. Well, I'll tell you why.
Because you thought it was cute. And so
Yeah.
when they told you no when they were little, it was cute. And, you know, when it's happened as a teenager, it's not so cute anymore.
Yeah. Sin is a lot like, what would be a good animal? Sin's a lot like a little animal you buy. It's cute and fluffy and everything's great, but whenever it turns out it grows up, it's like, well, I don't want this anymore. Like people who buy little alligators and they're like, oh, they're so cute. I'm like, what are you going to do when that thing's 3 foot long
Right.
and it's trying to eat you?
Right. It's
Okay?
not good.
It's not going to work. They get a snake. Oh, this is it. And then the anaconda turns out to be like a,
Like it's a man-eating thing. Like
12 foot. And it's just like, at some point, you have to realize that the sin you think is cute today is going to own you tomorrow.
right.
And you as a parent should be seeing those warning signs because you've lived through it, because you've broken those chains, because you've killed that sin before. And when you see it rising up in your kids, you should go to war immediately, like David should
Instead
have.
of seeing it as cute and funny.
You have every right, even if you've committed that sin, you have every right to stop your kids from going into it, because it's not that, well, I'm guilty, therefore I can't judge. That's baloney. That's a lie of the enemy.
And let it be that, okay, so my kid, let's just say cussing because it's easy right now. So if my kid cussed, it's probably because I cussed.
Yeah.
And so instead of saying, well, I cussed, so I can't say that they can't cuss, use that as your propulsion to then not do it anymore.
Yeah, say,
You
hey,
know?
don't say that. When they say you say it, say, I shouldn't say it. And if you hear me say it, you tell me not to say
Right, so
it.
we're going to stop doing this.
We're stopping this
But
together.
David didn't do that.
No.
He said, oh, I've done that too, I guess, so I can't say no.
Yeah. What right do I have to correct their character issues that are mine? Because he's seeing his failures in his kids.
Right, absolutely.
I want to start seeing my victories in my kids.
Yeah.
And so in order for me to do that, I've got to overcome brokenness. I got to overcome sin. He should have said to Amnon, Amnon, that's not the way we treat girls. That's not the way we treat women. That was wrong. I did that. You saw what happened. You are not going to do that ever again. And furthermore, you're going to take her as your wife, and you're going to do right by her, and you're going to take care of her. And if I ever hear of you treating her, as law, obeying the law,
said.
you're going to do everything that you're supposed to do. Because if you don't follow this line and I find out, I will end you. You'd start off like that as a king, and every one of these sons wouldn't have stepped in. Absalom would have said, I see that you...
I respect my dad.
Yeah.
He toes the line.
Yeah.
He's going to make us do the right thing.
Yeah, do right or get out of my kingdom.
And without Absalom's example, Adonijah probably wouldn't have stepped up either.
Yeah, and that's the how much more respect would Absalom would have had for his dad had he seen his dad step up and be the leader he's called to be.
Yeah.
How much would have these sons all respected it to the point where he says, "Boys, I hate to tell you this, ain't none of you all getting the throne.
Yeah,
It's gonna go
it's
to
Solomon, my 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 10th born.
Yeah, like in the middle, one of the
I'm
middle
not really
kids.
sure.
You know,
Not the top 4.
would you choose a middle kid to run your kingdom? I think it's wise. I think,
I've spoken like a true middle kid.
but he would have had enough respect and be able to tell his boys, you know, I serve God. This is what God told me. If you've got a problem with it, you got a problem with me. And I think his sons, if they would have seen a strong dad, would have had to make the choice. I'm going with what dad said, and I'm going to support my brother. Or they would have said, I'm leaving, and I'm going to go away where I'm not a problem.
But, instead we see all this yuck, and it's all bad and ugly.
Yeah, because one sin led to another, led to another, led to another.
But because God always has a plan, just like what we saw with David when Saul's kingdom was taken from him, God rose up David. And so just because David's sons are awful here didn't mean God still didn't have a plan. And so he has a redemptive plan with Solomon, who is the son of Bathsheba.
And now we're going to speed read through this because we're running low on time. It says here, this is 1 Chronicles chapter 22. I'm going to go to verse 8. And it said, this is David talking to his son Solomon. It says, but the word of the Lord came to me. You shall You have shed much blood and waged great wars. You are not to build my house for my name, because you have shed so much blood on the ground before me. God was telling David, David, you've had way too much bloodshed. You had way too much stuff going on. You cannot build this temple.
I know your heart is for me and to build my temple, but you can't do it.
You don't have the abilities. And then he goes on to say, but a son will be born to you.
So we're rewinding in time. Solomon, at that point, when Izzy's reading this, has not been born yet. This is a promise from God.
That David has held to himself. I will give him rest from all his surrounding enemies, and his name will be Solomon. And I will give him peace, and quiet to Israel during his reign. He is the one who will build a house for my name. He will be my son, and I will be his father. And I will establish his throne in the kingdom over Israel forever.
And so what is so cool about this is that David so believes in this that he names one of his sons Solomon, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's because when we see that Solomon is born to Bathsheba, it says the Lord loved him. Mm-hmm. And the prophet came and said, like, name him Jedediah, because it meant loved by the Lord.
Yeah.
And so I think that was David's sign of like, oh, this is the one.
This is it.
This is Solomon.
This is Solomon.
And so not only that, so he believes God in all of that. And then it's what, chapter 29 that lists everything that David did to prepare for Solomon to build the temple.
Yeah, he got all the supplies
He's getting
lined
all
out.
the lumber. He's getting all the gold. He's getting all the silver. He's getting everything he can possibly imagine in huge quantities.
Yeah.
So that Solomon, once he starts this project, has a leg up.
Yeah.
He's not starting from scratch.
He's even prearranged contracts with people and said, hey, when my son starts this, will you help him? And they go, yes, I will.
Yeah, they've kept like good. So he was good standing with like the king of Tyre, who had all of the like Lebanon wood and all of that. Like he's kept good relationships. And they say later on, like, Solomon went to this guy and he said, oh yeah, no, I was friends with your dad. Obviously I will do this with you.
Like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
And so David even charges the people and says, like, I want you guys to come in and help Solomon too.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
And so wrapping this up from good, bad, and ugly, here's the good of the story. We saw the ugly and the bad because of children sinning and parents not getting on them, not holding them accountable, and how it causes ripple effect for more sin and more brokenness and more brokenness. One stop could have ended it all, and yet it all escalated to where now we come to a point where the only son that David held accountable and did right with was this one right here, Solomon, that we can tell. And Solomon is being commissioned by God to build the temple. David was not making it about his legacy. He wasn't making it about himself like Saul did. Instead, he says, I want my son to do what God's called him to do. And so I can't build the house, but I'm going to buy the cedars. I can't build the house, but I'm going to get all the supplies together. I can't build the house, but I'm going to commission the laborers. I'm going to get everybody in the place at the right time, so when I hand this off to my son, he can do what God's called him to do. I'm going to tell you, if you've got a ministry, if you've got a ranch, if you've got a business, if you've got something that you are called to hand down to the next generation, don't wait till the day you die to sign it over to them. You should be training them like a pilot training a co-pilot in a cockpit.
I see like a ramp, like you're giving them a ramp to launch off of.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have to start where you start or start behind you even.
No.
You know, they get to start ahead of you.
Yeah.
You're ramping them up for success.
Yeah, get them in the same thing. Show them how to run the instruments. Show them how to fly the thing. Show them, you were saying a minute ago.
There's a teaching method, and it's called like I do, we do, and then you do. And so it's to show kids like a new skill. Like I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to practice it together, and then I'm going to put you on to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how this like trading off of leadership should be.
Yeah.
Of you've seen me do it.
Yeah.
Now we're going to do it together to show you that I have your back, that I have full confidence in you, because there is nothing that builds your confidence more than knowing someone else has confidence in you.
Yeah.
Especially someone who's done the job you're getting ready to walk into.
Right. So with that, make sure that you're giving that opportunity, that on-ramp for whoever it is you're handing down to your kid. Discipline, hold them accountable, and then give them the resources to thrive where God's called them to. Bring them alongside you and say, let me teach you how to do it. Don't let your last days be you in the lead. Let the last days be you sitting on the bench cheering on the next generation doing what God's called them to do. Yeah. That's the destination we're getting to, guys. I don't want to be in charge. I want to be the guy on the other side of being in charge who sits down and says, keep going, you're doing it. So that's good parenting. That was good. All right.
See you guys tomorrow.
Love you. And tomorrow is day 7.
7, yeah.
We'll see you then.